Today I'm talking about if you should start training as a beginner climber and how you should go about it, and we're starting right now. Training as a beginner climber can be quite tricky and potentially dangerous if you don't do it correctly. My long story short, you guys as beginners, and I'll talk a little bit more about what it means to be a beginner in a second, but as a newer climber, you shouldn't participate in much training. What you should be doing is getting on the climbing wall as much as you can without injuring yourself, doing lots of pitches or problems and trying to work on that technique, because most likely your limiting factor is not actually your strength, it's your technique, because climbing is first and foremost a skill sport, and without that skill, it doesn't matter how strong you are, you will not be able to progress. But if you can tell by the date that this video is being published, we are in a worldwide pandemic caused by the coronavirus, and I hope that we are towards the tail end of it, but I do not know that yet. So anyways, basically, as far as I know, every gym in the entire world is closed, especially in the United States, most of Europe, which is probably where most of you guys are located. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how a newer climber should actually go about trying to stay in shape, because a lot of the times, at least for me, towards the beginning of my climbing journey, if you want to call it that, my stoke was at an all-time high, and I was at the gym constantly climbing as much as I could, never really training much because climbing was just fun. But we don't know how long we're going to be stuck in isolation, so you could lose months and months of progress at the gym, especially if you're a beginner, if you just sit around on the couch all day and eat popcorn and get out of shape. So today I want to talk about what it really means to be a beginner climber. I think a beginner climber is someone that is fairly inexperienced, obviously by definition, but as a climber, I think if you haven't climbed for at least 1 year, your skill set is probably not very good. And by my skill set, I mean just your general technique, beta, mental techniques, and just basic things that take a long time to develop, like your fingers. Like your fingers will not be able to crimp really hard just off the couch. So if you've been climbing for less than 1 year, you're probably not climbing much above V5 or 512. And that is a cutoff that I would say would be a good starting off point of where you might want to start to look into training. I'm not a trainer myself, but I wouldn't suggest getting into any intense like campus boards and fingerboard and stuff like that without having at least a year under your belt of climbing and getting to a certain strength level. Because I think that a beginner climber is someone that's new but also haven't developed very much strength, because I think you can climb for 10 years, but if you haven't really gotten very strong during those 10 years, it might not be a good idea to start training intensely. But today I'm going to talk about some things that you could do as a beginner climber, not only at home, because we're all stuck at home right now, and maybe in the future you guys won't be able to make it to the gym, and this video will actually help you a little bit. So first off, what we're going to do is try and do some pull-ups. I know this can be hard. A lot of you guys might have hangboards, but there's different ways that you can go about this. You could pull-ups off of a bar in your backyard, maybe on a tree, in your apartment complex. Maybe you could do it under the stairs. Sometimes stairs have basically, the flat edge of the stair underneath, and you can do a pull-up on that. Maybe door jams. Be careful with that one because you might bust your door off or your door jam off. But there's just a lot of ways that you can do pull-ups. I would suggest trying to do no more than 10, because at that point you get into more of like endurance, and climbing's not really an endurance sport. Sometimes we talk about endurance in climbing, but in reality it's power endurance, because endurance is like marathon running, and we're not really ever doing that unless you're like climbing a big wall 5, 6 the whole time, and you guys probably aren't training if you're trying to do that. So at least not in this sense. So doing pull-ups is a really good idea. Try and do less than 10, like I said, or do at least 10, or basically as many as you do. You can do negatives if you can't do that, which basically just means jump up, hold it, and try and come down as slow as you can. Because some people can't do a pull-up and they can still climb pretty hard. But it definitely helps to be able to do them. So that's a good one. The second thing that I would suggest to do is push-ups, because this can be done anywhere. There's a couple different variations that you can do. I would suggest playing around with it. This one you can do a little more reps and be fairly comfortable, but if you want to get more intense about it, you can do some of these explosive style push-ups, and those can be maybe a little more relevant to climbing, because typically doing more than 10 reps in one of these bigger muscle groups is going past the point of strength conditioning. You want to stay in that lower rep range and try and build strength, rather than trying to like go into the toning phase, which is, I don't even know what that is. The third thing that you want to be training, which might be the most important thing of all, is your core. I just made a video about core training. I think that that is the number one thing that beginner climbers struggle with. And it's very hard to notice because it doesn't really show itself very well. So as an inexperienced climber, your feet might be slipping a lot, or you might be struggling to really like push on a foothold and make a big move, and it's probably your core that's struggling. And it doesn't really make much sense, because you think it's your feet, you think it's your shoes, you think it's a greasy hold, but in reality it's your core inability to actually push on those holds. And if you get on steep stuff and you're not able to bring your feet back on, if your feet cut, then it's your core. So I just made a video about that. I'll link that in the description, and it'll be up in one of these corners as well. So go ahead and check that out. The fourth thing is going to be squats or some type of lunges, basically a little bit of leg workouts. Being that we're all stuck at home and I'm trying to make this just no equipment video, we're just going to be doing some bodyweight squats. But if you haven't done these in a while, you'd be surprised how sore your legs can get just by doing 12 bodyweight squats a couple times for a couple sets. And this can kind of help with some more slab climbing, dynos, and just general fitness. It's not really a high priority, I wouldn't say, but like since we're all stuck at home and you can't get to the gym, you can't really go outside very much right now, I think it would be a good idea to work those legs and get them ready for crushing later. So the fifth thing to do is to work on your shoulders. This is more of an antagonist workout. And by antagonist, I mean kind of working those extra muscles that don't get worked a lot. Like as climbers, we're often like pulling down and our shoulders can become hunched over. And so we need to strengthen some of those scapular muscles in the back, and also all our muscles that are pushing up, because in climbing we rarely ever do this motion, we always do this motion. So I'm going to show you a couple of those in basically using some bands. If you guys don't have bands, you might be able to find some other techniques to do this, and I will try and link some things down below that have something like that. But you might be able to use some towels, or basically if you are quarantined with a friend, or if this is after the quarantine that you're watching this, you might be able to just get a friend to help you kind of give you some resistance to your arms to do some of those workouts. You can use maybe a bottle of water. There's lots of things. Okay, and the last thing is I would suggest doing a little bit of hand therapy workout. And by that I mean doing something like this, or maybe like one of these things, which you could squeeze, or using this TheraBand flex bar thing, which is really good if you've ever had tennis elbow or something like that. Because if you're working out from home, if you're quarantined, if you're, if anything like that is going on in your life when you're watching this, you want to work some of those things out so that when you do get the chance to go back and climb, that you don't end up feeling injured during that time, because that's just not going to be very much fun. So I hope everybody enjoyed this video. I hope everybody is safe and healthy, and I hope you guys stay strong, and when you have your next opportunity to climb outside or in the gym, that you are fit and ready to go. Catch you later.